Setup. I'm glad you're all here again for this next episode of HSP TV. This will be the 30th episode of HSP TV. And today I want to talk to you about pricing your products, and also about a couple of insights that I had during my holiday. I know I promised you last time that I would broadcast live from Sicily. But I found myself to be in a place where there was no internet, so unfortunately that was not possible. Otherwise I would have gladly shown you how beautiful Sicily is and what you can all see there. But unfortunately that was not possible, so I'm back again in Holland, and I'm back again today with a new episode, number 30, and it's all about pricing, because I received a lot of questions about it and I thought I'd do an episode. So if you're watching live or tuning into this broadcast, wave at me, type in your name and where you're from, then I'll give you a shout out. I always like to connect to the people that are watching. I think I have everything set up now. I think you can see me. If you cannot hear me, please let me know as well. Then I can adjust something, but I think we're all set to go right now. So, I have received several questions about pricing. How do you price your products? How do you know what a good product is? I empower your journey energy, and Rovers Edwin, nice of you to join today. I had to look for your names because you're very small at the bottom of the screen, but awesome that you're here. Thanks for watching. So, how do you determine the right price for your products? And that is always a difficult question, or a question that I get asked a lot. There are several ways in which you can determine what would be the right price for your product. One of the ways is to just name a price, but I would advise against it, because you probably won't ask the right price if you do it like that. Another way that most people use is look at your competitors, see if they have a similar product, see what kind of price they are asking for it, and then base your price on that. That could be a good strategy, especially when you are just starting out. It gives you a sense of direction, it gives you a broad idea what would be a normal or accepted price. But for me, the best way to determine your price is to base it on what you think the value of your product or service is. So if you offer a service like coaching, like I do, there are many coaches, but it doesn't mean that my price for my coaching needs to be the same as the price that other coaches ask for their service. And so my price is based on the value that you get in return. So the value that it will give you when you've finished with my coaching. And the way that I base my price is I use my intuition. Hi Liberty, IG, nice of you to join. Glad to see you here today. Sorry, pop up. That's what happens with live TV. Hi, nice of you to be here. What I do is I use my intuition when I decide what my price needs to be. So I take into account the amount of hours that I work with a client. I take into account overhead costs, like maybe renting a space, or other products, or if you make a workbook, or you give something to people, then you need to take into account the price of those things. But the most important thing is that you take into account what their results will be. So if, for instance, somebody, hi Rob, nice of you to join. So for instance, if somebody has a really big problem that is preventing them from achieving their dreams, from achieving their goals, from being the person that they want to be, if you had to put a price on that problem, what would it cost them? What would be the price of that problem? And then think about, if you could solve that problem, what would that be worth to somebody? What would it be worth that you could finally move past the one thing that is keeping you from being happy? What would that be worth? And that's a difficult question, I know, because it's really broad, and it's also it uses your imagination. It's not something that you can hold. If you have a cup like this one, you know what it costs based on other cups that look similar, and you also have a price range in mind when you determine your price. But subjective things like what does it cost to be happy, or what does it cost to be unhappy? They are much more difficult. So what I do for that is I use my intuition. I start to think about what I think my service should cost. And usually I have 2 or 3 different pricing strategies that I am considering. And what I then do is I write them on a white sheet of paper. I turn the paper with the amount upside down so that you cannot see the amount. I hustle them around so that I don't know where they are. And then I stand on top of one of the sheets. And then I think, okay, so for my services today, this is the price that I am going to ask. This is the price that I would put on my coaching service, for instance. And then I would be quiet, and then I would tune into my body, and I would feel what would happen. Do I get a physical response? Am I getting a headache? Am I getting nauseous? Am I getting hot or cold all of a sudden? Or I also pay attention to my thoughts. Do I suddenly feel inspired? Do I feel happy? Or do I suddenly feel sad? And these are all signals that tell you something about the price that you're standing on. And there's no good, there's no bad, there's no wrong, there's no right. It's just information. And so you write down, perhaps, or in your mind you write down what sensations you feel in your body, what thoughts that occur in your head, and what other things that capture your attention while you're standing on that sheet of paper with the price that you cannot see. And you think about that this is the price that you're going to ask for your service or your product. Hi Marlene, nice of you to join. Hi Jana, nice of you to join too. And you do this for all of the pricing papers that you made. I usually take 3. I think, oh, this could be a price I can ask, this could be a price I can ask, and this could be a price I can ask. So you did the first one, and then you do the same with the second one. You go and stand on top of it. Again, you are not able to see the price that is on the bottom of the page. So I would advise you to not use a permanent marker or something that can come through the paper so that you still can see the price. You shouldn't be able to see the price that you've written down. And then you stand on top of it again, and you tune into your body again, and you again try to notice if something happens. Does something change? Does something shift? Do you feel a sensation in your body, a headache coming on, or hot cold feelings, maybe cramping, or maybe a sudden flush of joy, of happiness? And also pay attention to your thoughts. What are you thinking? Are you thinking inspirational thoughts, positive thoughts, or are you suddenly worrying about what you should do for dinner later on? Now, write down or mentally write down all the things that you notice when you're standing on this pricing paper. And you do that also for the 3rd price that you had, or for the 4th or the 5th. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many prices you think of, but I would advise you to not go beyond 3, because it would be really difficult. So try to narrow it down to 3 possible prices for your product or your service. And then for all 3, you stand on top of the paper, you notice the things that you feel in your body, the thoughts that you're thinking. You can write them down, or you can just keep them in your mind, whatever is best for you. And then at the end, you turn around the paper that gave you the best feeling, or that gave you the happiest thoughts, or the paper that you intuitively felt most attracted to. And the price that you've written down on that paper, that could be or should be the price of your product or your service. And so that is my answer to how do you determine your price for your product or your service. Especially as a highly sensitive person, we are very intuitive and we are very in tune with our surroundings. So this exercise should really give you something to work with. You should be able to feel the things in your body, to become aware of your thoughts and the signals that your body is giving off based on thinking that this would be the price for your product or service from now on. If that's not working for you, then maybe try first to do a grounding meditation. And make sure that you're grounded, make sure that you're breathing from your belly, and then try the exercise again. It is very important that you are in touch with yourself, in touch with your inner strength, and that you are able to feel and experience the signals that your body is giving you. Because if you're not in touch with yourself, you're not able to feel, so then it will be virtually impossible to make your decision. That is my answer to how do you determine your price for your product or your service. One thing that I've always been told by mentors that I've had is that it is just as easy or just as difficult, depending on your point of view, to sell something with a low price than something with a high price. And I used to think when I just started out, well, yeah, that's easy for you to say. You are already successful, and of course you sell what you want to sell, if it's a low price or a high price. So I had a bit of a hard time believing that what they said was true. But recently, as recent in last week, during my holiday actually, I came to the conclusion that they were right. I am now asking much higher prices than I was doing in the beginning, and it's actually easier right now to sell my products and my services than it was when I had a lower price. And it all has to do with your mindset. So people buy from you, yes or no. It seldom has something to do with the actual price that you are asking. It has to do with how well you can explain the results to people, how well you can have your conversations with people, how well you are able to tell them that what you're offering is a solution to their problem. And it has to do with your mindset. Often we think that people don't have a lot of money, and that if you ask too high prices that people won't come, that people won't buy your product, people won't buy your service. But it's all in your mind. Because look at yourself. If you have an acute problem, if you, what can be a good example? Say for instance, you broke your leg and you need crutches because otherwise you cannot walk. If the crutches cost €5, you would buy them. But if the crutches costed €50, you would buy them as well, because you have broken your leg and you need to walk and you cannot move or walk without crutches. So people will pay the price that you are asking if they can see the value of what you are delivering. So if they can see what it's going to give them, and that's what I told you in the beginning, it's more important to get them aware of the results. If you can really solve their problems, if you have the answer to their solutions, then they will pay to have that solution, because they are hindered by the way that things are now. Otherwise they won't be looking for a product or a service. So it doesn't really matter how high or how low your price is. What is important is that you are convinced of your product. You need to be convinced of your service. You need to be convinced that it's the answer to their problems. You need to be convinced that you can deliver and that you can actually help them. And you need to convince them of that fact as well. And if you are able to do that, if you are able to determine what is the problem and then give them a solution that will actually help them solve their problem, then they will pay you what you ask. Does that make sense? I hope so. For in the beginning, I remember when I started, I thought, well, okay, if I hear this, then it sounds, yeah, I couldn't even say logical. Sometimes some parts sounded logical, but it also had to do with my insecurity in myself. I was just starting out. You don't have much experience yet, clients. You might not know for sure how well your solution is going to work. Of course, you know that it is a solution to a problem, but you haven't really actually tried it yet. So I understand, especially when you're a starter or a beginner, It's really hard to determine what should be your price, or if you're successful, or if you actually have a solution to somebody's problem. And what I want to tell you, if you're in that situation, is to not give up, because it becomes better and it becomes easier the more often you do it and the more experience you get. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to hear a no, because a no just means that you haven't explained the results or the value of your product or service enough to the person to say yes. So you can learn from your calls, you can learn from these things, and you can ask questions as, what is your reason for not wanting to do it? What would be for you a reason to want to do this? And all this information you can incorporate into your next conversation. So I want to advise you also, if you work with sales conversations, with clients, for instance, then to analyze the conversations and also to ask feedback from your prospects or your potential clients, because it really helps you to get your conversations better, and it also helps you to get clearer on what your result will do for somebody, what it will offer, what it will delete, or what it will improve, or whatever it is that you have. And that is the most important thing, that you get really clear on what kind of product or service you have, and also what it does for somebody, what the results will be, and why they should want it, why they should be crazy with want for your product or your service. That is one of the most important things. And in the beginning, of course, it has a learning curve. Everything has a learning curve. The first time I got into the car, I couldn't drive on the freeway, for instance, in the beginning. Even city roads were hard, and now most of my driving is on autopilot. I'm guessing it's the same for you. So everything needs time, everything needs attention. So try to analyze it. Don't be down or think that you are a failure or something when a client doesn't say yes to your product or your service, but try to find out why they are saying no, and what you could have done different for them to say yes, or what they would have needed to hear to say yes, or what your product should have been able to do for them to say yes. And this is all really valuable information that you can use in your next conversation, because the better you become in explaining your value for your service or the value of your product to people, the more likely they will say yes. And again, it has nothing to do with the price of your product. Well, okay, nothing might be an exaggeration, because if you want $3 million for a cup like this, then nobody will buy it, of course. So there are limitations. But in general, if you have a reasonable price, people will pay it if they actually see that that is the solution to their problem. And so that was my insight, what I gained in this holiday. I had the time to really let everything go and to really not do anything with my company, and I daydreamed a lot, and a lot of things fell into place, and I suddenly realized that what they had been saying to me when I started, what I had difficulty believing in, it is true. It is not harder to sell something from 2,000 euros than something for 10 euros or 100 euros. It's just based on how well you do your talks, how well you do your sales, how well you can tell what the result will be of your product and why they should want it. So that is also something that I wanted to give in this broadcast today. And so we talked about pricing, how you can determine your price, and different strategies to do it, what my favorite strategy is. So I'm hoping you will try it. And if you have any feedback or questions, please get into contact with me, and I would love to help you. And we talked about how it is not more difficult to sell something with a higher price than it is something with a lower price. So please don't base your pricing strategy on fear, on being afraid that if you ask a too high price that you won't be able to sell it, because that will not be the case. It will not be because of the price that you're asking. It will be because different reasons if it doesn't sell, but not because of the price. So I hope this was valuable for you, and I hope you learned something from this. Again, if you have any questions or any other topics that you would like me to tell you more about, please email me at info@tobeInbalance.com, info@beinbalance.com, and who knows, your question or your subject could be the subject of next week's broadcast. That would be amazing. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching. If you thought that this was a really valuable video that taught you a lot, I would really appreciate it if you would share it also with the people that you know, because you never know who could also use the information that I shared today. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you all again next week, same time, same place. But for now, bye.